From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the latest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making an impact across the world. We begin with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's first hire. Trump has named his campaign manager, Susie Wiles, as his White House chief of staff. Wiles is widely credited for running Trump's well-executed and victorious campaign. Trump describes her as tough, innovative, and universally admired and respected. Wiles will be the first woman to hold the post. Chiefs of staff serve as the president's confidant. They also help execute a president's agenda and is widely considered as someone who shapes and defines a presidency. Over to the White House as U.S. President Joe Biden urges Americans to bring down the temperature following Donald Trump's victory. Biden says he has already talked to Trump and he has promised an orderly transfer of power.
Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. And I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran.
Biden says Tuesday's vote has proven the integrity of the U.S. electoral system. He also has a message to fellow Democrats still reeling from Kamala Harris's defeat.
You know, we're leaving behind the strongest economy in the world. I know people are still hurting, but things are changing rapidly. Together, we've changed America for the better. Now we have 74 days to finish the term, our term. Let's make every day count. That's the responsibility we have to the American people. Look, folks, you all know it in your lives. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. We all get knocked down. But the measure of our character, as my dad would say, is how quickly we get back up.
President Biden will continue pressing diplomatic efforts in Gaza and Lebanon, even as his term winds down. The White House says the goal is to end the war in Gaza and secure the release of Hamas hostages and find a resolution to Israel's conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon before Biden leaves office in January.
We're going to continue to work to get to advance diplomatic efforts, obviously to end the war in Gaza and secure the release of all the hostages. That's what we're going to continue to do, and as well as our efforts to get to a resolution in Lebanon that ensures citizens on both sides of the blue line can safely return home. And so that's going to continue in the next 74 days. That's going to continue to be a focus, and that's going to continue to be a commitment.
Well, President Biden will also continue providing aid to Ukraine. The White House says Biden wants to make sure Kyiv has everything it needs to push back Russia's offensives. Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022.
So look, I think in September, the president talked about surging aid to Ukraine, and we've been hearing us to kind of announce aid to Ukraine over the past several weeks, if not months, and so that's not going to change. We're going to surge and get that out there to Ukraine. We have taken action to strengthen Ukraine's air defenses and enhance their battlefield capabilities. And so we are committed. We continue to be committed.
Heading to Russia now for President Vladimir Putin's first public remarks since Trump's stunning election victory. Putin congratulated Trump and said Russia is ready to talk with the Republican president-elect. He also praised Trump for showing courage during an assassination attempt at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania last July.
You know, you can think of Trump whatever you want, because everyone initially in his first iteration as president said that he was mainly a businessman and that he understood very little about politics and could make mistakes. But first of all, I can tell you, his behavior at the moment of the attempt on his life impressed me. He turned out to be a courageous man. And it's not just about raising his hand and calling for the fight for their common ideals. It's not just about that. Although, of course, you know, it was done in the heat of the moment. A person shows himself in extraordinary circumstances. This is where a person shows himself. And he showed himself, in my opinion, in a very correct way, courageously, like a man.
Over in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he has already spoken with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, and the global economy was high on the agenda. The two leaders tackled trade, including the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement that they negotiated during Trump's first term.
I look forward to working with President Trump once again to strengthen North American economic opportunities for the middle class, to grow our economies in ways that make us competitive around the world, to protect North America from the many, many challenges that exist around the world. The world is actually even more difficult and more complicated than it was 4 years ago. And I know that there's lots of work for us to do, and I'm looking forward to do it. On our side, we've been preparing for this. We're looking forward to doing this work.
The Philippines expects continued U.S. support under Donald Trump amid its maritime row with China. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, says there has always been bipartisan support for America's treaty ally and U.S. policy in the Indo-Pacific. He adds it is in Washington's interest that the South China Sea remains free, peaceful, and stable, especially given the economic side of it, as trillions of dollars pass through the disputed waters. Philippine President Bongbong Marcos has already congratulated Trump and said he expects the unshakable alliance between Manila and Washington to continue. Trump 2.0 still sending shockwaves across America. In Philadelphia, Muslim voters are divided over Donald Trump's victory. Some say it could threaten their rights, while others expect him to keep his promises of peace for the Middle East. Trump recaptured the White House by securing more than the 270 electoral college votes needed to win the presidency. He has vowed to revive restrictions on U.S. entry of people from a list of largely Muslim-dominant countries, a policy that sparked multiple legal battles during his first term.
As a minority here, I feel as though that our voices are never heard, and we had the opportunity to speak up and to vote for someone that could help with our getting our message out there. Now I think that since he's going to be in office, that minorities, we're going to be 10 steps back, and everything that we were fought for and our ancestors fought for is going to go to waste. I'm thinking I'm losing my right, women's rights. I'm thinking I'm losing my right religion because I see that he wants to put forward just Christianity, and I believe that this country opens up to every religion.
He didn't do much for Muslim, but this time when you see that, you know, he promised the Muslims and also he is against war. So we're expecting that, you know, this time he probably wouldn't do, and he probably will stop the wars like in all these Muslim countries, if he could do and save humanity.
In other news, a federal judge threatens to hold former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani in civil contempt for failing to surrender his luxury apartment and other belongings to two Georgia election workers he allegedly defamed and owes $145 million. Giuliani had been ordered on October 22 to hand over the property to Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss within 7 days. The two won their case against Giuliani, whom they accused of destroying their reputations through lies that they tried to help steal the 2020 U.S. presidential election from Trump. Giuliani, a former lawyer to Donald Trump, has been given until next week to hand over the property.
Do you think Mr. Trump can help get you out of this?
Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump doesn't have to help me get out of it. All Mr. Trump has to do is straighten out the legal system, and you'll find out who the real criminals are. I mean, the bringing of this case was a complete abuse of process. The $145 million judgment to anyone sensible is ridiculous, obviously punitive, obviously done because I'm a Republican and I was in a democratic dictatorship, which, by the way, New York is. I mean, this city for 150 years has been a corrupt city whenever Democrats run it. Read history.
Freeman and Moss are trying to seize Giuliani's Manhattan apartment, a 1980 Mercedes, sports memorabilia, and cash accounts. But the lawyer says Giuliani appears to be shuffling his assets around. Up next on World Newsfeed, hundreds of firefighters are battling raging wildfires in California. Stay with us here on BNC. And we're back. You're still watching World Newsfeed. Wildfires raging in California and the scale of destruction captured on aerial video. As many as 800 firefighters, backed by helicopters, are battling the wind-driven blazes, which has spread to over 14,000 acres. Over 10,000 people have been told to evacuate, as officials describe the situation as dangerous.
Deploying 10 damage assessment teams that are going to go through every street and every property and do an analysis on every outbuilding and every home and give us a report back on that. That is going to take some time. We want to do it right the first time and make notifications to the property owners that their property has been damaged or destroyed. So please hang with us as we are challenged with the time it takes to go door to door with 10 teams. We're going to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible.
From wildfires to snow, a blizzard hits the southern parts of New Mexico with several feet of snow closing several roads. Police say over 100 motorists have already been stranded, while over 30,000 people are without electricity. The blizzard is expected to also affect northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. More bad weather as Hurricane Raphael tears through western Cuba. The storm leaving a trail of destruction in its wake, with Artemisa province, known as Havana's breadbasket, bearing the brunt. Violent winds toppled trees and power lines and damaged many homes in the region.
Imagine what my husband and my daughter went through here. The metal roof tiles were flying. When everything calmed down a bit, we managed to get out of here. We were very scared. We had never been through a storm inside a house before. The important thing is that we are alive.
Here at home, Typhoon Marca loses more strength over the West Philippine Sea, but most parts of Luzon are still under storm signals. Weather Bureau Pagasa says Marca is likely to weaken before leaving the Philippine Area of Responsibility this afternoon or evening. But it will remain under typhoon category. Police are ready for rescue and relief operations.
Yung ating pong mga SAR personnel po, yung Search, Rescue and Retrieval Operation Team remains on standby po para po kapag may mga kailangan po ng mga efforts, particularly preemptive evacuation, ay nandoon po yung ating mga PNP in coordination po doon sa ating mga local RRDMC units po in their respective municipalities and po provinces.
Countries are gathering in Busan, South Korea from November 25 to December 1 to finalize a treaty to reduce global plastic pollution. But there's deep divisions over issues like production cuts and funding. Without global limits, waste will continue to overwhelm ecosystems. Now, across 5 very different countries, though, single-use plastic remains hugely popular.
The world produces around 400 million tons of plastic waste every year, much of which is thrown away after just a few minutes of use. This year, negotiators hope to sign the world's first binding treaty on plastic pollution that environmentalists hope will reduce production. But across much of the globe, single-use plastic remains hugely popular as a cheap and convenient option. In Thailand's Bangkok, cakes like these used to be wrapped in banana leaves, but cleaning them and checking them for tears became time-consuming.
ไม่สะดวกที่จะใช้ใบตองทั้งหมดไม่ทันด้วยหายากมากด้วย
This small shop uses at least 2 kilos of single-use plastic every day. Overall, Thailand produces 2 million tons of plastic waste a year. 11% of that goes uncollected, and is burned, disposed of on land, or leaks into rivers and the ocean. Plastic would also be hard to give up for this vendor on Rio de Janeiro's Ipanema beach. He pays $1 for 20 cups, where he serves iced mate to beachgoers for a little under $2.
Né? Porque a gente não tem recurso maior, porque é de nosso próprio bolso, né? Por isso que a gente compra copo de plástico.
Bins along Rio's beaches receive about 130 tons of waste a day, but plastic is not separated. In fact, just 3% of Brazil's garbage is recycled annually. Plastic waste is also a major issue for Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos, regularly blocking sewers and evacuation routes. One significant source of pollution is water sachets. An estimated 60 million are discarded across Nigeria every day, according to the UN. Cheaper than water bottles, these sachets have become a necessity.
We have bowl for markets. That bowl, you cannot use them anyhow. Because of no clean way. You need to boil it before you can use them. You can use them cook. You cannot use them drink. Because of different sicknesses outside.
Since they appeared in the 1990s, water sachets have become a major pollutant across much of Africa. Lagos banned single-use plastic in January 2024, but with little impact so far. In Europe, different countries have introduced laws to combat plastic pollution, like in France, where items like straws and plastic cutlery have largely disappeared. Single-use plastic bags have been banned in France since 2016, but reusable, slightly thicker plastic ones are still allowed, as are compostable ones. In this Paris market, these bags remain stubbornly common.
Il y en a qui arrivent à me demander des sacs, même en ayant un sac. Quand ils prennent des choses un peu plus lourdes, parce que c'est des sacs vraiment bio et très fins, donc je suis obligée d'en mettre plusieurs pour pouvoir contenir ce qu'il y a dedans, oui. Donc c'est pas du tout écologique en soi. Voilà.
An average vendor at this market will go through around 2,000 bags per week. Another sector where plastic remains omnipresent is the restaurant industry. In Dubai, this establishment usually receives more than 1,200 orders every day. In the desert metropolis of about 3.7 million, people rely heavily on home delivery for everything from petrol to coffee.
اغلب الاكل بيطلع بالبلاستيك كونتينرز، هي طريقه التسكير تبع البلاستيك كونتينرز بتجي اقوى من الكرتون واقوى من الشغلات هي، فبنحافظ على الاكل جوات العلب.
Residents of the United Arab Emirates have one of the highest volumes of waste per capita in the world. In the last 20 years, plastic production has doubled globally, and at current rates could triple by 2060. Currently, more than 90% of plastic is not recycled, with much of it dumped in nature or buried in landfills. A recent study found that 56 companies are responsible for more than half of the world's plastic pollution. The fifth and final round of UN talks to agree on a world-first treaty on plastic pollution is set to take place in South Korea in November 2024. Some nations want the treaty to restrict how much plastic can be made, while others, particularly oil and gas producing countries that provide raw materials to make plastic, want a focus on recycling.
Well, Britain's King Charles welcomes his Jordanian counterpart to the Windsor Castle. This is World Newsfeed here on BNC. We're back. You're still watching World Newsfeed. Some royal update now. Britain's monarch welcomes King Abdullah of Jordan to the Windsor Castle. In true royal fashion, the two walked the grounds of the castle while the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards played God Save the King. The kings then had tea as Charles presented the King of Jordan a gift, a silver beaker. The present was meant to celebrate 25 years since Abdullah became king of Jordan. Heading now to France as holiday festivities there begin, actress Juliette Binoche unveils the Christmas window display at the Printemps Haussmann department store in Paris. This year's display features marionettes and decorations in a train setting. It's visible on the bustling boulevard that gets flooded with shoppers during the holiday season. The festive display has long been a part of the French Christmas tradition.
Christmas time is a time that I love, that I find festive, and that brings the family together. Even if the families are sometimes a little broken, divorced, reconstructed, deconstructed, or again reconstructed, there are always stories that come with this period. But for me, it's still a celebration. Firstly, because as a child, I loved this time of reunion, that it smelled like a Christmas tree, where we put clementines instead of balls. We didn't necessarily have Christmas balls. For me, it was always a time and a place for celebration.
And an AI robot makes auction history with a record-breaking artwork at Sotheby's. It's not just the first time a humanoid robot has had its work sold by a major auction house, but the painting by the humanoid Ada also sold for $1.32 million. The work, dubbed AI God, is a 7-foot-tall impressionistic portrait of the father of modern computing, Alan Turing.
My artwork is a portrait of Alan Turing, the brilliant British mathematician who laid the foundation for modern computing and artificial intelligence. The portrait has a fractured and layered quality, reflecting our current fragmented and multifaceted worlds. History has shown that technological advances can lead to both positive and negative consequences for humanity. I agree with Turing and with the United Nations that we must keep working for AI to be used for good.
And that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us again next week when we bring you the world in 30 minutes only on World Newsfeed. Follow the Money comes next. Keep it here on BNC.